know, it may just be me, but I really got a feeling like we could catch fire and have a great season, huh? Now, who's with me?
Woo! The electric in the air!
Sometimes may be good, sometimes may be
The Cleats First, Logic Second Football Podcast with your hosts, Alexander Lauber and Phil Almodovar.
Welcome to day 2 of the January 2021 Transfer Bonanza. Phil, today we'll be looking at Seria A, and for those of you who don't know, what we'll be doing is taking the role of the transfer director of each of the top 7 Seria A clubs, and what we'll do is suggest our 3 transfer moves or strategies in the upcoming January 2021 transfer window.
Yes, we will be taking on the role of higher up at the club, and we'll be going through AC Milan, Inter, Juventus, Roma, Napoli, Sassuolo, and Atalanta. Some really intriguing clubs with a lot of options at their fingertips this transfer window. Alex, let's get right into it.
So yeah, let's start off with the league leaders. AC Milan has had a great start to the season, and I think there's still a couple of improvements that can be made to the club to ensure their success throughout the rest of the season, as well as in the coming seasons. So, first off, Zlatan Ibrahimovic has looked great this season. We know that he's currently, I believe, out with injury. I do think that his run of form at his age isn't sustainable and isn't something that will last. So I think it's going to be crucial for AC Milan to look to strengthen that strike force with someone for the now, but also someone for the future. And I see this in the form of Memphis Depay from Lyon in Ligue 1. He is cheap. He's expected to be available for around 5 million euros. And at that price, I think any club really should jump at the opportunity to sign a player like Depay if he's interested. He's a clinical finisher, as we know. He's gritty, and I think just overall he fits the mold of an AC Milan player. On top of that, we have, like I said, credit to them. We've seen great performances. But I do think it would be important to bring in a strong center back, ideally younger. And I think that a player like Upamecano from RB Leipzig would be the type of player to fit this mold. Will he be available in January? Not necessarily, but I do think it's worth taking a swing at that and trying to get that signing over the line. But I do think that one of the most important moves for AC Milan to make this January 2021 transfer window would be to re-sign Gianluigi Donnarumma and Hakan Çalhanoğlu at all costs. Both of these players are out of contract come June and are both keystones in the roster. You're definitely going to have a bunch of top teams swiping at both of these players if they do become available. So I think it would be a huge mistake not to get them locked down and not to get them locked down as soon as possible. And then if you look further down the line, Franck Kessié and Davide Calabria, both huge pieces on this roster. Their contracts are coming up in 2022. Those are further down the line. If you can get those done as well, get those done as well as soon as possible. But like I said, Donnarumma, Çalhanoğlu, both crucial to re-sign.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. You need to re-sign those 2 players, but I'm also going to add to that. And I'm not going to say, I'm going to say Zlatan is fine up top. I'm going to say you don't really have to do anything this window on the buying sense. However, on the sense of making sure you keep those players that you need at the club, maybe now is the time to start thinking about working on making Tonali and Brahim Diaz permanent deals. Because both players, when they have played, have looked really positive for AC Milan. I know they're not both crucial yet, but they can become big parts of the club. And Tonali, this was a great loan opportunity to say, okay, let's give him a little bit of a test run. And if we like what we see, let's make that deal permanent. I like what I've seen from him. I think they need to make the deal permanent. I think Brahim Diaz, it would also benefit them. This might be a little tougher, though, coming from a Real Madrid team that likes the youth that they have and definitely want to keep it. However, it's not impossible. I think that would really put this AC Milan team over the line and stop the inconsistency that they've had over the years. 1 year doing well, 1 year not so much. They need to make those moves to be able to stay up in Serie A's elite, and I think doing that can start that.
Yeah, we've seen AC Milan shaky over the last couple of years, and it seems like they finally found their footing. I agree with you on the Sandro Tonali side. That would be a huge mistake not to try and get him signed as soon as possible to a full-time contract and not just on loan. I think Brahim Diaz will be interesting to see how that plays out. Çalhanoğlu playing in that same position naturally at center attacking midfielder. In my opinion, I don't think that that's as important as a signing as Sandro Tonali, because I think that Tonali and Kessie pairing in the midfield is phenomenal and is something that not only will work out now for AC Milan, but will be something to help sustain the club's success and elite status come future seasons. So from there, let's move to the other club in Milan, and let's look at Inter. Phil, 1 point shy of AC Milan, second place in the table currently. What 3 moves would you make for Antonio Conte's Inter Milan?
So Antonio Conte, obviously, we've seen now that Christian Eriksen is likely going to leave. I say get him out. I don't see him really being a fit in this club anymore. I think you should transfer him out and get whatever you can for him. I don't think there's any top priority of getting top dollar for Christian Eriksen, especially at this point in his career. Antonio Conte is rumored to really want Olivier Giroud in the club, which I'm not so sure about. You already have Romelu Lukaku, Lautaro Martinez, although Martinez, you never know if he's going to stay or leave. I don't think adding another striker, though, is the option right now. I think you need a solid central attacking midfielder, whether that's an Isco or a Dele Alli or whoever Antonio Conte really wants to fit that position to help out Lukaku up top creatively. I think, of course, I have it written down here that the ultimate answer would be like a Jack Grealish kind of player to slot right in there. Will Jack Grealish go from Aston Villa, his boyhood club, who's playing as well as they are now, to an Inter club? Probably not, even if he is offered top dollar. But I still feel like however you could get a class center attacking midfielder, that should be the number one priority for Inter this transfer window to replace Christian Eriksen.
Phil, I agree with you there. I think that they are in need of a top center attacking midfielder. However, I would look to La Liga and I would make a move for the out of favor Isco with, initially a loan to test him out. So you're not committing to this, but similar to Eriksen, it would supposedly be a cheaper move in the 18 to 20 million euro mark. And it has the potential to I think Isco has this potential to spark something in the Inter Milan side and help further their offense. And at the same time, it stays realistic in the price. In addition, being that they play a 3-back, we've seen De Vrij, Skriniar, and Bastoni play as a great trio, but I do think you need depth. And for that, I'd actually look over to Turkey at Feyenoord for 22-year-old Marco Senesi. He's a proactive defender who steps out of line when playing a high line. He traditionally plays a 4, but being that he's a left-footed center back, I would personally play him on the left of a 3. And he has good awareness and good support when the left back is out of position. Granted, he has gotten burned out of position at time. This, though, playing a 3-back, that does cover up that flaw in his game. And I think it would be interesting depth. I think he has tons of potential on how to advance his career, and going to a top club like Inter Milan would definitely be that big next step for him. Now, I agree with you. I think you have to move Christian Eriksen this window, but it also might be the window to move other surplus that may not fit Antonio Conte's style. an older player like Nainggolan. But also, I think it might just be time to move Laureano Martinez and capitalize on his high market value.
Absolutely. Martinez, especially what he's worth now, could definitely be going as well. Now, going to the most interesting, I feel like, club right now in Serie A, Juventus have had a tough time in the league this year. They're not out of it for sure, but they definitely need to make some moves in order to make it work. Now, first things first for me, I think in Andrea Pirlo's sense, I think it would be the best option to sell Paulo Dybala. I just don't think he really works in Pirlo's mold that he's trying to create right now, especially in attack with this Juventus team. I think at times he even holds them back. So I think Paulo Dybala should be on his way out, if not now, maybe in the summer. This transfer window for sure, I think it would be a good option also to buy another center back. I know you have Chiellini, I know you have De Ligt, I know you have Bonucci. However, Bonucci and Chiellini are starting to get a little up there in age. I'm not saying they're not great options. I'm just saying maybe it's time to take a little bit of weight off of their shoulders and allow yourself to have another center back to rotate in. Low-cost option would be Shkodran Mustafi from Arsenal. It looks like he'll be moving on this window. And I also think, too, that if you want to spend high again, especially if you do end up selling Dybala and getting a lot of proceeds from that, maybe an Upamecano can be on the cards for Juventus to start throwing in there to partner with De Ligt and seeing if that has any traction to it. Also, Juventus need to buy a right wing back. This answer could be a number of players, I think, to fit their style. You need a staunch defensive right wing back. Going forward, of course, is a priority, but the wing back also needs to be able to come back and defend as well. Hector Bellerin would not fit that mold. There are a bunch of wing backs out there that would not fit that mold. I think Andrea Pirlo, in that sense, would have a better sense than me on who to get for that position. There are a bunch out there. We'll see how he takes that on, because Cuadrado right now is not the answer.
I don't think Cuadrado is the problem when you look at the greater scheme of things and the struggles that Juve has had. I think for one reason or another, they've been failing to gel. If you look at that roster is undeniably extremely talented, but I think you do need a lot of glue pieces in that squad to help tighten up the offense to the defense, or tighten up the defense to the midfield to the offense, and help contribute to the offense. If you're only scoring through Ronaldo and through Morata, you're not going to win matches. Also, if you're shaky in certain senses, you're not going to win matches. I think starting with the right wing back, Danilo is not it. Danilo, he keeps starting, and personally, I don't rate him at all. It was a huge mistake to sell Cancelo when you did. That's neither here nor there now. I think it's time to move on from Danilo and replace him with a quality right wing back if Pirlo continues to play the 3. Cuadrado has adapted well to this, but obviously at his age, you need a long-term replacement. And I think it'd be interesting to look at Emerson from Real Betis. He has phenomenal attacking prowess, great potential. He's tenacious defensively and great at applying pressure. So he does everything that you'd want out of your right wing back, and he does it very, very well. And with the guidance of fellow Brazilian Alexandro, I think you can get the best out of him at that club. I think the next big step that Juve should make, especially with the fact that he is seemingly on the trading block and available, with the fact he's not happy at Manchester United, I think it's time for Juve to make the move for Paul Pogba. We look at Juve's midfield with players like Arthur, Bentancur, Rabiot, Ramsey. McKennie's had a phenomenal season. We see talented midfielders, but I feel like bringing in Paul Pogba, during his time playing alongside the likes of Pirlo, Pogba was able to get out his best football, and I think a return to Turin might just do that for him and be something that helps to support the cast at Juve and continue his development and his growth and his return to prime Paul Pogba. Now, if we're looking at a move that can be made in January for the future, if you look back at Juve, one of the things that they are clinical at doing is signing players on a free and signing players who end up being top players for their club. It's not often that you see debatably the best goalkeeper in all of Italy and a player still at his young age has the potential to be the best goalkeeper in the world, available and out of contract on a free. January 1st, Juventus should be reaching out to Gianluigi Donnarumma's people and get him signed to a pre-contract immediately. Juve ought to be promising him the world because he deserves it. If you have that type of a player available, jump at it and throw the money that you can at it. You know there's no shot that Milan would ever sell him to Juve. To snatch a player of his quality from their biggest rival would definitely be a huge blow. And even strategically speaking, it'd be interesting to see the type of fallout that would have with how great Milan's season is going so far, if they'd be able to sign that. Is that realistic? I don't know, but I think if Gianluigi Donnarumma was 100% sure that Milan was the club for him long term, he would have already signed that contract for now. I think it's time for Juve to try and deal that blow to them off the pitch and make that signing.
Interesting, Alex. We'll see if Juventus make the jump for him in January. Next up, Roma. Very interesting club. We've seen a lot of interesting transfer moves from them in the past couple of windows. I think the biggest thing from them is, once again, going back to the Arsenal pool again and grabbing another potentially quality player in Lucas Torreira. If Arsenal decide that Torreira still is not part of the plans, I think that Roma should go for him and should go for him on a permanent deal. Try to help him shore up that midfield along with the players that they already have there. I think the midfield is the biggest concern for this Roma club right now, and I think Torreira can be dynamic not only in defense but coming forward for the club. Now, also for me, this club has 6 center backs. I think that's way too much for a Roma. I think maybe loaning a few of them out could be beneficial to the club as well. I don't think selling right now is the best option for them. I know they have a surplus, but right now, loan a few out, see what you want to do, reevaluate in January, in the summer, and see where you want to go from there.
I agree with you. There is a surplus at the center back position, specifically Juan Jesus and Federico Fazio. Neither of them have featured heavily. And at their age, I believe, actually, I want to pull this up out of curiosity. Federico Fazio is 33, Juan Jesus 29. It may just be time. Their value has been declining. It may just be time to capitalize on that, bring in some money to the club. Henrik Mkhitaryan has been a revelation for Roma since joining from Arsenal. We know how mediocre his spells at both Manchester United and Arsenal were. He's found his form. The way that they've been playing too, with 2 center attacking midfielders, you do need to bring in reinforcement at the center attacking midfield position. Looking across Seria A at Atalanta, Papu Gomes may just be the player to do that, and I would feel fits that mold, but also can bring that prowess and that contribution to the offense. Now, if you look at their team, something that they are missing is another top quality center forward. We know how good Dzeko is, but he is getting older. Looking internally to Serie A, another player who has fallen out of favor and hasn't featured at his club, Milic, would definitely be interesting. He's used to the league. He still has potential to grow. And if you can support him with that cast at Roma, the types of your Henrik Mkhitaryan's, if you can get that Papu Gomes signing over the line, that's really interesting to me. And that adds some flair and some scoring prowess that they may be lacking or maybe on the decline with the aging of Dzeko.
Interesting take there as well. Now let's move on to a club that has not played up to seemingly its potential. Napoli struggling this season. I feel like Napoli need to become sellers this window. They've been trying to get an unsettled Kalidou Koulibaly out of the club. I think they should continue to try to push him out. This may diminish his value a little bit because I don't know how many teams now, the center backs at Manchester City being bolstered there, are going to really want to bring in Koulibaly, especially at the price that Napoli want him for. But if they can get him out and maybe bring in a Mustafi or a Socrates from Arsenal as a replacement, that would be a good thing there. I also think that it's time to let Milik walk. Sell him for as much as you could get for him. He just has not fit Napoli in terms of the way that he plays, his consistency. There have been issues with consistency. There have been issues with his form. There have been issues with injury. I think it's time for Napoli to cut their losses there and say, well, maybe you'll do better at another club. And really just let all that out for this window and start over in the summer.
I agree. I think it's a window to sell for Napoli. If you look at Milic, you look at Llorente, who hasn't featured a lot. And I agree, Koulibaly, it might just be time to move on from him if there's the right buyer there and if the price is right. If that's the case, I think you make the move for center back support. And I agree, Socrates from Arsenal would be that player to fit the Gennaro Gattuso mold of a more gritty, traditional center back. I think Socrates is made for Serie A. And at a number of clubs, they could use a player like Socrates. Also, if you look at their lineup and the lineups that they've been playing Zielinski at center attacking mid. Outside of that, there aren't any true center attacking midfielders at the club. I know I've pulled from this well before, but I think it would be interesting to see Papu Gomes at Napoli and seeing what he can do with that phenomenal offense. We've seen Politano playing phenomenally this season. We've seen Insigne. Osimhen and Mertens are both out injured. I believe they should both be back. They're both expected back. Mertens early January. Osimhen isn't exactly clear. But I think bringing in a player like Papu Gomes would definitely help strengthen that offense and is a fairly cheap transfer.
And going from there, we go to a surprising team in Serie A, Sassuolo, with a brilliant start to the season. We're up in that top four, now have kind of drifted off a little bit. Are there moves that can get this club back on track? Sure. I think that up top, Caputo could be sold. I think his production at his age is not going to continue. If you could get him out, I think it's the best to do so. 6 goals, most of them coming from the real star of the club, Berardi, who is going to become a must re-sign in the future for the club as well. Bringing in up top a replacement, I think the best option might be an Olivier Giroud if he does end up leaving Chelsea. Low cost, maybe not too much younger than Caputo, but he is a serviceable option in the box and arguably is a better finisher as well.
If I look at this Sassuolo side, I see a really interesting underdog story, but at the same time, there are phenomenal young talent in the likes of Locatelli, Boga, and Berardi. However, the biggest move this transfer window needs to be to not bite on any potential interest there may be for either of these 3 players. And like you said, looking long-term, getting them signed long-term. At the end of the day, if they ain't broke, don't fix it. And with the current run of form, I wouldn't suggest any drastic moves that may shake up the Sassuolo side and shake them off of their pedestal and off of the rise that they are on. I mean, the only move I'd really look at would be adding to the midfield. There is a little bit left to be desired. And if you look in that midfield, maybe bringing in another leader to work with Berardi and add a high work rate player. Harry Winks might be your guy from Tottenham. We see him falling out of favor there. And I think it would be, intriguing too to see how he would slot in Serie A and if he would be able to contribute to that team as a leader and as a player with a high work rate. So from there, let's move to the last team we will be evaluating in Serie A, Atalanta. Phil, what 3 moves would you suggest for Atalanta? We see An Atalanta side that's fallen off of their pedestal from last season. We've seen some things get shaky in the club. Where would you start?
Well, my 3 moves are simple, Alex. Sell Papu Gomes, sell Ilicic, sell Zapata. Those are my 3 moves. That core needs to go. Okay, there has just been too much this and that, tug and pull going on there. They're starting to age anyway. Get the highest price you can get for them, and I think the highest prices are going to come now, especially with a cam like Papu Gomes going to be going at a premium. Teams are going to need cams. Get him out. Now, in terms of, like I said, those are my 3 moves. That's it. I don't think there's anyone really to bring in for them this window. I think they need to become sellers. Take the money, keep it, hold on to it. Wait till the summer until there are better, younger options to bring in to start rebuilding this club.
First and foremost, I'd agree with you on 2 of those 3 players. Papu Gomes, it's for whatever reason time to move on from him. And Ilicic, there's been rumors of another falling out there. It may just be time to move on from both of those individuals and continue trying to move forward with your current roster. However, I think at the same time, there is a goaltending surplus. If you look at their roster, they currently have 5 goalkeepers on the roster. I think it might just be time to either loan or sell outright either and or Rossi or Radunovic. Further, it might be good to look to loan in a midfielder to cover for Pulisic and support depth, help with the leadership and help with this exodus of these older players. And I've mentioned this so far in the series, but it may be worth looking at either Danny Drinkwater or Fabian Delph from the Premier League as 2 more experienced players who can also, while there is the language barrier there, mind you, it would be interesting to see how they would slot in Seria A. So that ties it up for today's Transfer Bonanza special. Phil, that wraps up Seria A. Tomorrow we'll be looking at the Premier League, looking at a number of the clubs there, and looking at the essential moves they need to make this January transfer window in order to continue with their success.
Yes, I can't wait to speak on those. And Alex, it was great talking with you today about Serie A. Can't wait. See you all there. And remember, meat first, soccer second.